You've tuned in to Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. We're just warming up here for the regular show. Just wanted to say hi and spread a few ideas while we're at the studio. Looks like we're hacking the Matrix. Ladies and gentlemen, how's everybody doing out there? Any case, we did want to talk about a little information and see what everybody is doing out there. How's the lockdown for you guys? You've seen a lot of controls, checkpoints. What's up, Scroogle? What's up, Michael Higgins? NYC Last Republican. Ramses, what you doing? Steven? Al, Stevens, Boxing Star, Marcel, Jessica, what's going on? How you guys doing? Any case, we had some news that we wanted to cover. Why not start with the 100 days of pandemic? Feds are planning a database of the infected. Yes, get your chip, ladies and gentlemen. We're seeing some countries introduce smart apps. So you're going to have an app on your phone, and that way they can track you at all times. We'll start seeing all sorts of messed up shit as they try to reboot. We obviously recommend civil disobedience. And, they're going to try and kettle you in to the slaughterhouse. But, this is their fault. Let's not forget that. Speaking of which, let's get into this little clip, if we can. Let's play a minute or two of it.
Did you see these memos that reportedly Peter Navarro wrote back in January? When did you see them, and how does these memos sort of square with what you've often said, that nobody could have predicted this? It sounds like he was predicting.
I didn't see him, but I heard he wrote some memos talking about pandemic. I didn't see him. I didn't look for him either. But that was about the same time as I felt.
I didn't see him. I didn't look for him either. Plandemic, that wasn't on my agenda, bitches. I was talking about something else. And there's all sorts of little things like this that you pick up during the press conferences. I mean, I don't want to dwell on this. I mean, he's doing the best job that he can. They're ahead of schedule, they say. We'll cover that in the regular broadcast. We just kind of wanted to throw that out there. There's some news that memos were circulating in the White House, and they're like, oh shit, and nothing happened. So we'll get into that. We got a lot of other things that we kind of wanted to examine. Bernie Sanders is gone. The commie has dropped out, gonna buy another McLaren. And what else we got? We're gonna be talking about what's going on in Congo, believe it or not, a little bit. As well as, what's going on in Kansas City. Fuck Congo right now. There is some wild shit happening around Kansas City right now. There's this huge death cloud on earthnullschool.net in the carbon monoxide spectrum. And we know that air pollution plays a big role in the onset of symptoms. So we're guessing that somewhere around Kansas City in the Missouri area, we're going to see an explosion of cases. And this is a big swath of land here. This is like if you were to transpose this on the East Coast, I mean, this would take up like, a big chunk of land. So whatever's going on here, it's fantastic. So we're able to plot the coordinates here, and it brings us to somewhere around Kansas City. I think we've got a location of the origin, suspected origin, somewhere around Junction City, between Junction City and Topeka, it looks like. And it must be like, it must be stretching into Iowa and the like. It must be taking up like a nice big chunk when you look at it. If we were to zoom in, approximately the same scale. We're looking at a huge death cloud right now, stretching the Midwest. You can check that out for yourself if you know how to use earthnullschool.net. Handy little thing, if you will. And we could actually kind of talk about pollution in general and the map. What we're looking at is basically sulfur dioxide being a pretty good indicator of where cases are at. Now this is current. If we go back 2 months, we're going to be quick about this. We're not going to stay here forever. What happened to the dates? Well, looks like we're going to have to. There we go. If we go back to, because right now things have locked down, pollution has gone down a little bit, but if we go back a couple months more, you can see clearly like the eastern half of the US is like in a whole different environment. And this is where a large chunk of the cases are. And if you go back to the carbon monoxide map, you know, there's always usually some kind of thing going on around New York City. So, you know, New York City's always got this kind of, you know, looking thing on it. And so not a surprise that they've got the worst cases. Will we see it explode like that other places? I guess we'll find out. Of course, we've had a record day of deaths in America. 2,000 in the last 24 hours. Total cases 12,000. Total deaths, we should say 12,800. 400,000 cases. Testing is always a question. We're seeing that a lot of states, you know, really aren't testing that much. They've done like maybe 50, 100,000 tests. And so the numbers are certainly going to continue to go up. We'll be following more of this. We're not going to dwell on this. There was other things that we wanted to talk about. The phylogenetic trees in next strain. And of course, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, are skeptical that a virus is even out there. Each one of these nodes represents a deposit in the gene bank. And it's basically a sequencing of the virus. You know, you've got the originating lab, when it happened, the GIS AID number, collection date, you know, location, 16th case in Wisconsin, etc. So, you know, it seems like they're picking up something out there. Again, each one of these nodes represents a deposit in the gene bank. And, you know, this is actually kind of a really cool website, a little bit, Next Strain. You can, you know, look at the evolution of this virus, if you will. And there's a couple ways to measure the evolution. I mean, we could spend a lot of time here, either by divergence in terms of mutations or in time. Now, time, of course, you know, it looks slightly different here. But time, of course, represents when it actually got tested, when the person got tested, when the results came back, when they sequenced it, and when they actually deposited in the gene bank. So the dates here of like when they actually were entered into the system are a little arbitrary as far as when they actually got a hold of the specimen and they were able to sequence it. Not sure what the DJ is doing, but I can feel it lacking. There's no music. But so, you know, the date of collection is certainly one way to look at it, but divergence is a better way to look at it. Number of mutations, and you can see, you know, basically you can get a feel for how old the virus is based on the mutations it has from the original strains. And, you know, I was hoping to spend a lot more time on this. I'm not sure how much time we will be able to spend on this. But in this phylogenetic tree, we basically have different clades or groups, strains, if you will, of this virus. And right now in Next Strain, they're listing, you know, looks like about 10 different strains, not including the original Wuhan strains in gray. And we're looking at mutations, which are, you know, fairly well laid out in terms of if we can blow one of these up. I guess this changes a little bit, but in the little submenu you can see what kind of mutations it has, etc., etc. Usually the more mutations it has, the older it is. The longer it's been in circulation is essentially the idea. And we can look at dates. We've just kind of like tranched till mid-March here. And all of a sudden, Congo just, appears out of nowhere with something that's got like 20 different mutations on it, far ahead of the rest of the crowd, which tells us that in Congo, this thing has been circulating for quite some time before they picked it up on 3/11, which was nearly a month ago. So, this is one of the oddities that we'd love to spend time on. Another one is really this one. This is an explanation of the phylogenetic analysis, divergence, and the like on next strain. And they have, the most perfect example, because early on in the outbreak, and we were tracking this and we made mention of this, but when we were looking at, the USA strains, here's one, here's one, here's one, and they were pretty much, in line with everything else that we're seeing, minus the originals from Wuhan. So these were the originals. When you look at divergence from the original one mutation, they're pretty much all still in Wuhan, or at 2 mutations, they're all still in China, with the exception of, here are the first entries outside of Asia: USA, France, USA. So this tells us, and you look at the dates, this is basically end of January, right around the lockdown of Wuhan. So you can see that, these specimens are real close to the original virus. Same dates, same times. And then you got this guy way out here, which already had 7 mutations when they picked it up. And this is the first California case, California 1, 2020, in January 24th. And this thing already had 7 mutations. It was way ahead of the pack, which tells us that this thing had already been circulating in America for a while, or else whoever this guy was in contact with, it had been circulating for quite some time, much longer than everybody else. And you'll probably see things that were, this guy and this guy were basically tested around the same day, a day apart. But, this thing was, this one was nearly twice as old. So, we could spend a lot of time. It's kind of boring. We're not going to really dwell on this on a regular broadcast, but it should give you something to think about, look at if you're, still interested in this Wuhan super virus, ladies and gentlemen. What else we got for you? But I guess, going back to the next strain, if we push this out, the timeline all the way up until the most current entries, this line is still going. Senegal, Congo, Senegal. So something happened here. USA. So somehow, Canada, this thing went from the USA, Canada, into Congo. It's similar in terms of its genetic makeup. But again, this is kind of interesting. You can see where things are. Now this one is Wisconsin, and this is the most advanced strain, in the gene bank right now. It's got about 16 mutations, so it's been circulating for quite some time out there in Wisconsin. I think we got some maps. I'm not sure if we're going to spend a lot of time here, but this is, this is fairly interesting, and, piecing it all together is not as straightforward as you might think. And they do that intentionally. They don't want you connecting the dots, if you will. Connecting the dots, isn't that something? But this is a radial view, and you can kind of see. Now, most of these are in Europe. All the blues, most of them are in Europe. Most of the orange is in USA, which is kind of weird. So we've got the B1. It's kind of predominant, as well as the European strain. And I think, we're going to have to think about this. I don't know if we're going to play this or not. You know, we could. But essentially, you know, the original strains were different. You know, you've heard about this. And then we start having divergence. And, you know, we're just not going to spend a whole lot of time on that right now. This is just not the moment for that. What else we got? Anything really? Maybe a few news stories to cover. You guys got any questions out there? Anybody out there? I don't know if anybody's out there right now. We're just warming up. Regular show is going to be at the regular time. And it looks like it must have cut out or something. If anybody's out there right now, we're just warming up. Regular shows. Fuck. Man, I hate it when they do that. Video guy's fired. Want to give a big shout out to everybody out there. Death to the New World Order. What you doing? Catherine, how you doing? Greetings, Frozen One. Frozen One, you must be up north. Jan B, what you doing? Chris, Dwayne, the 420 priest, really? Catherine, Jan B, Matrix Universe, what are you doing? How's everybody doing out there? In Kansas, okay, we got something in Kansas. The air is hard to breathe in Kansas. Okay, well, look, what we're seeing in Kansas right now, let's see if we can come back to this, is that there's something major going on. And this is what we were saying. They're going to induce respiratory distress through, you know, various kind of like outgassings and the like. I think we're just going to have to reload this whole thing. But anybody in the Kansas City, Missouri area and probably downwind to the east is going to be feeling the effects of whatever this is that erupted just west of Kansas City. Let's see if we can get back into where we want to be. Carbon monoxide. There's this weird cloud, this death cloud right now. And you can see it for yourselves. And it's been progressing. It looks like it's been like this. It erupted somewhere near Junction City. Let's try and get back to the date. It would have been, well, it looks like it would have been, you know, in the middle of the night. How convenient. While people are sleeping, they're getting gassed. And it's been erupting all day. There's something major going on out there right now. And of course, we're not getting a whole lot of cooperation. And it's drifting east. But you know, this area is now a target. This area, you know, they're still going to be eating some coronavirus. But getting back to the news, we talked about the Congo. Here's some body bags in Paris. A lot of Parisians here. So you have to wonder where they're incinerating those bodies at. Congo is going to be a testing site for the new vaccine. There's something about Congo right now. You know, we're seeing the really advanced forms of this virus in Congo. So, you know, was this the original testing ground before they released it at the Wuhan military games? Could be. It looks well advanced in Congo. Let's see. We'll get into that maybe later. Coronavirus, the French government is going to be rolling out, it looks like, an app using Bluetooth, and so you're going to be connecting to everybody else's phone uses, you know, with the Bluetooth to make sure you're respecting social distancing, and they can track you and all of this stuff. You can translate all of this. Let's see. Sluggish response. A lot of transit workers, subway workers, dead and dying. De Blasio says that the numbers could be far higher. Of course they are. Ammon Bundy, man, we're going to get on this. Rejects the stay-at-home order. Everybody should be telling, you know, the government to go fuck themselves. Quite literally. I mean, they let this shit in. They are like the poster child of fuck-ups out there. How to not to handle, you know, an outbreak, an epidemic. And they want to continue to give guidance. You know, at first it was like, oh, you don't need a mask. Even though everybody's like, well, hold on, this is airborne. Of course you need a mask. And they're like, no, just wash your hands. No, these people, you know, on television, they are the poster children of fuck-ups. They do not deserve to lead. You know, we elected them for something else. They're not capable. You know, we elected them to run the economy, it looks like, right? But these people aren't capable of running much of anything else. And so they want to give guidance. They can go fuck themselves. Antibody testing fiasco deepens. Health ministers are, issuing cries for help to make DIY tests, blood tests, et cetera, et cetera. It's still, a huge fiasco. Trade advisor warned White House in January of the risks of the pandemic. We'd like to see the Navarro memo. Now, here's the big one. Coronavirus death rate is significantly higher in places with increased levels of air pollution. And you can check all of these links out on our website or our Twitter feed. But there's a huge correlation between air pollution and where these cases are breaking out. And that's why we're saying, fresh air 24/7, get air filters, get masks, get the works, protect your air quality. Don't spray chemicals and shit, and wash your hands as little as possible because, usually all of that stuff has a fragrance and it's an irritant to your lungs. That's why they make hypoallergenic soap, because most of the soap is an irritant, and so is the lotion that you'll have to put on, after you wash your hands. And so you're just breathing this shit in all day. It's diabolical. But there's a huge link between air pollution and severity of cases, and what we're seeing right now is cause for concern. So this is on our radar. This is live right now on earthnullschool.net, and you can trace the evolution back to early overnight. Something happened there, and there's something you can tell by the two little devil horns here. This is diabolical. But that's the way the matrix glitches at you, quite literally. But you can see this thing, something erupted here, and there's a major issue. Not surprising that it's hard to breathe, and you look at the wind currents right now from here, it looks like this is going to be blowing in eventually to Chicago or something. But keep an eye out. You'll see people burning shit in your area. You'll see, fires and all sorts of shit. They're trying to smoke you out. They're trying to suffocate you. Fight that shit like it's nobody's business. At least call the fire department or something, illegal burners or whatever. Keep your air clean out there. We'll keep an eye out on this. We'll be back for the regular broadcast, which will probably be in about, say about 3 hours. So we'll prepare a regular broadcast for everybody and kind of go over the latest news and updates. We'll leave it there for this broadcast. Much love to everyone out there. Until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, the video guy's fired. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.